Hi everyone, welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. Another week, another opposition preview. This week it's Manchester United, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Jay from Stretford Paddock. Jay, thanks for coming back on the channel, mate.
Always a pleasure to you guys. Hope you're well.
Yeah, and of course this season it's been a bit of a strange one, hasn't it, for United? 12th in the table, not the start you would have wanted, of course, under Erik ten Hag after that FA Cup win in May, and keeping the faith in him for the first couple of months on the season. But what are your thoughts now? Because I'm sure they're very different to what they would have been a month ago.
I wanted him to do well. I thought he was going to do well. I thought right up even till last season, even to the end of the season, I was behind him, and I thought the FA Cup could be a catalyst. The FA Cup win, to the way we won it, to beat Manchester City, to be the dominant team in that game as well. I thought, right, okay, hopefully we could get some signings in the summer and kick on. And this season we were just as bad as we were last season. I mean, to finish 8th last season was from a United point of view was terrible, and then to be sort of bottom half of the table after 8 or 9 games or whatever it was just wasn't good enough. And you can see, yes, he didn't have much luck in terms of some of the decisions, but ultimately the performances weren't good enough. So I thought it was the right decision for him to get sacked. To be honest with you, I lost faith after the Spurs game. I was I was backing him up until then, but to lose to Spurs the way we did, I know Bruno Fernandes's red card was rescinded, but even before that, we were shocking. And I like Ruben Amorim so far. I know it's only been 2 games, but I like the way I like what he says in press conferences, where he carries himself, the charisma he's got. I like what he's done at Sporting, and the fact it's something new. It's a different idea, different formation, some different tactics. And hopefully he can get these players playing, because we have got some good players at Manchester United. It's not like the team's terrible. They've just been underperforming for far too long. So I'm cautiously optimistic on what Ruben Amorim can do.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, quite an exciting time to be a United fan. You know, that game against Ipswich at Portman Road. The sort of like feeling around that game from me as a neutral was very much that the onus was on Ipswich. You know, they were at home. They had a packed out crowd. For United, it was a little bit of what we saw with the likes of Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, or other managers in the past, where they've come in and not necessarily all of the players are still going to be there next season. It was sort of a feeling of, use what he's got and try and make sort of a makeshift system that he will play with the players that he has got, the likes of Evans and Casemiro and players like that who, maybe won't be here, aren't in the long-term plans for the future. But of course, that game, I think, a promising start in the Premier League for Ruben Amorim, being able to get that point against Ipswich, bar a fantastic goal from them. It would have been a win.
I didn't want to look too much into the Ipswich game, because we didn't have a full week with a lot of the players training. Because I know it was international break, but some of them were still coming back from international duty. Some of them weren't fit. So it was, like you said, it's very much a makeshift team. You look at some of the players that started that game. I don't expect them to start every week. Johnny Evans, for example, I like Johnny Evans, but is he going to start every week? Probably not. Even Casemiro and Eriksen, I don't expect them to start most weeks as well. Marcus Rashford as the 9, I don't think that's going to be a tactic that he's going to persist with. So he had to sort of cut his cloth accordingly. And we did have a bright start. It was annoying that we couldn't hold on to that lead. But I look at the first 2 games. I look at the game in Europe against Bodo Glimt as well. Obviously getting that all-important first win. And you can see what he's trying to do. I was sat near him for the Bodo Glimt game, and you can see he's very, very animated on the touchline, constantly in the players' ears, telling them what he wants to do. And that's because they're still adapting to the system. It's very early days. Most of these players haven't played in this formation before, or if they have, it'll have been, a one-off or years ago, whatever. They certainly haven't played in a 3-4-2-1 at Manchester United. So we have got to be patient. You can see what he's trying to do. Yes, it's good to get that point at Ipswich, even if it isn't something, I'm not going to sit here and go, it's wonderful we got a point at Portman Road, especially after going ahead after 80 seconds. But I think you're right. There are positive signs there, and we've just got to build on him. We've just got to be patient, build on him, hopefully get players back from injury. It's already good to see Luke Shaw and Tyrone Malacia available, Mason Mount getting some minutes as well. And if we can bring in 1 or 2 players for him, I think this manager, he could have success at Manchester United. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm watching that Bodo Glimt game. I think there was again the same sort of feeling of a lot of players that aren't quite sure where they'll fit into this side, but are playing a little bit out of position, or like you said, they played there a long time ago. Malacia was one, I think, who struggled maybe because he hasn't played a lot of games for United over his time at the club. But on the whole, I think the feeling was a lot different. I mean, no one expected Bodo Glimt to come out and play as well as they did in that first half, but I think the likes of Hoyland grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, it was a very different feeling around Old Trafford. But in terms of Amorim, how does the excitement of his appointment compare to others? Obviously, it's been, I don't want to say revolving door, but there's been a lot of managers there in the past 10 years, Moyes, Van Gaal, Rangnick, Mourinho, all of them. Is this a bit of a different feeling in terms of younger, a bit of a more unknown entity?
It's not that dissimilar from the feeling around Eric Ten Hag, if I'm going to be brutally honest, because Eric Ten Hag came in as this sort of youngish coach. I know he's a little bit older than Ruben Amorim, but in coaching terms, he was still considered quite young and a very successful coach at one of the leagues that isn't considered the biggest league. Um, was linked with other clubs, but came to Manchester United, had brought sort of Ajax back to dominance in the Dutch league. Ruben Amorim obviously with Sporting won them their first title in 9 years. So there's a lot of similarities from the feeling you've got now with Ruben Amorim to what you had with Eric Ten Hag. It feels similar-ish. The main difference, I think, with Ruben Amorim is how he carries himself in press conference. He's very charismatic, very confident. I think winning a title at Sporting after 19 years is a little bit more difficult than winning at Ajax after 4 years, I think it was. And I do feel that there's probably a little bit more optimism with Ruben Amorim just because of the fact that whilst Ajax were doing really well when Eric Ten Hag left, but Sporting were just dominating, weren't they? I think they'd won every game this season, including beating Manchester City 4-1. So people looking at going, here's a manager that's very much at the top of his game, coming in at 39 years old, the youngest manager I think we've had since Matt Busby or something, or around those times. So there's probably a little bit more optimism, but it does feel similar to the way it was with Eric Ten Hag because of the fact that it's a young coach, because he's one of the most sort of sought after coaches in Europe, because he's had success at one of the less fashionable leagues. You can see why people will look at it and go, "Oh, you've been here before." But I do feel that Ruben Amorim, I don't know if I've said this before, I've probably said it to you before, Steve, but I feel that with this manager, the fact he is so young, the fact that he does have this sort of different style, and the fact he carries himself so well, and the success he's had at Sporting, it gives me reasons to believe that this manager could be the one.
Well, I mean, it's. I mean, we're sort of in the same boat in in a different way that every manager who comes in, you hope that this is going to be the one that finally sticks. We don't have the luxury of being like a Liverpool, Arsenal, or a Villa where they really have a real culture around their club now and have a coach who's going to be a long term man. But um, Everton this season under Sean Dyche, I mean, I've spoke till I'm blue in the face on the channel about it, but what's your opinion? Because we've toyed with the idea of relegation now for a few years. It's just not being good enough for a club of Everton size. And yeah, basically, what are your thoughts on from as an outsider looking in?
Popular opinion amongst Evertonians. Sean Dyche, I think he's a good manager. I think he is. I think that yes, at times you might look at the football and go, you don't associate Sean Dyche with progressive, entertaining football. But I think if you look at a lot of the resources that other clubs have got now, I know Everton are a massive club, one of the biggest clubs in the league, but look at what other clubs are spending as well. Look at the teams they've got. It's very difficult, this league. And I think Sean Dyche has got his the way he works. And I think that whilst, you know, you should be happy to be where you are. I get the idea that you want to be progressing up that table. You'll be looking at clubs like Brighton, for example, and saying, why aren't we doing what they're doing? I expect anyway. But I think he's a good manager. I think that I get the impression with Everton that it's a similar situation that we've got at United, but on a smaller scale. I feel like Everton a few years ago misspent a lot of money. I feel like there was money that went out the door at Everton that didn't bring in the quality it should have done, and that was a similar thing that happened at Manchester United, where 4 or 5 years ago, I remember saying that something like Everton had spent like the third most amount of money in the Premier League at that time, during that period, and you think, where's it gone? And that was the same at United. We've spent like £2 billion, and we're nowhere near a title challenge. We're further away from a title challenge than we've ever been in the Premier League. How have we misspent so much money? It's absolutely mind-boggling. And I think there's a similarity there with Everton. You've not done it on the scale of United. You've not misspent £2 billion. But I think a lot of money has been spent on players that probably weren't good enough. So I think Everton and Dyche are trying to fix that, if you will, and I think it is a long-term fix. So I quite like him. I think he's a decent manager. I can understand why you might be looking at it going, it's not good enough, whatever. But I do feel that it is, and the amount of money going around it, you're in you really are, where if you haven't got loads of money to spend, you haven't got that many players in the academy. You've got some, but if you've got like a conveyor belt of academy players you can throw into the first team of the Premier League, probably not. I don't think anyone has, to be fair. Then it's hard, and I think Sean Dyche is doing. I think he's doing a decent job.
So let's look at United this weekend for a likely lineup. The lineup that I found online for my match preview yesterday, I actually thought it was a bit off in terms of they had Casemiro and Eriksen starting, and I think Ugarte is one player that I really liked in the last game against Bodo Glimt, and I think if Amorim's gonna start with the Casemiro and Eriksen, that's going to be a huge place that we can hurt you. But I don't think that'll be the case. I think Casemiro's a bit of he's a sort of a bonfire waiting to go off. I mean, he came on the other night in the Europa League and he was booked in about 5 minutes for a handball. So I mean, coming from you, how do you think that you will line up this weekend?
I think it'll be the 3-4-2-1. I think in midfield, I'd expect to see your guy start, if being honest. I think the back three depends who's fit. If either Maguire or Lenny Yoro are fit, they might get a start. I don't know if they are or not. Otherwise, you might see a back three of maybe Mazraoui, De Ligt and Martinez. Even though I'd like to see Mazraoui as a wing back, I think that's perfect for him. 2 10s, because he likes to play with 2 10s. I think Bruno will probably be in one of those positions. And maybe he puts Diallo up there, although he might use Diallo as a wing back. If he does use Diallo as a wing back, then I think it'll be Garnacho in that 10, or maybe Marcus Rashford, with Rasmus Højlund leading the line. Because, like you mentioned earlier, in Europe, he obviously got his brace, looks like he's up for it, and looks like he could benefit from playing in this system where he will get more service. The interesting thing for me will be whether Luke Shaw's fit and whether he plays in part of the back three or as a wing back, and who is on the other wing back position. So it's a bit of a weird time at the minute, because he said he's going to give everyone a chance, and he has done. You've seen Mason Mount, you've seen Anthony playing, John Evans, who I mentioned, Eriksen, Casemiro, players that might not necessarily always start. He has been given a minutes, but we're still in the early days. We've got big games coming up. I'm not saying Everton is a big game, of course it is, but we've also got Arsenal on the horizon as well. So it'll be interesting to see just how he sort of juggles it around and who's available as well, because we've still got some players who they might have come back from injury, but they're not 100% fit yet.
You mentioned Amad Diallo there, and he's a player I've been really impressed with since he really got into the starting 11 at United, particularly with his versatility. And I mentioned it on my solo preview last night about it's hard to predict that lineup because he can play in a few different positions. He can do a little bit of everything, and while it may be the wrong word to describe him as a danger man for United, would you say that he's the most important player who can really hurt Everton? And if not, who would you say?
I think you'd be every right to call him a danger man. I think Amad Diallo is a fantastic footballer, I really do, and I think this season he's showing what he's capable of. I think last season we saw it in glimpses. He didn't get many minutes. I think he's played about 12 games. He obviously ruined Klopp's farewell tour. I'm sure you were happy about that, with that last-minute winner at Old Trafford, which is one of the best games I've been to Old Trafford ever. It was amazing. It was fantastic. And even the red card he got after the celebration was hilarious, and it seems to just add to it all of being a fantastic day. This season, he's done well. He's not scored loads of goals, but he's had a hand in goals. You saw it against Ipswich, you mentioned. counter-attacking, getting running the full length of the pitch with the ball, getting that cross in for Marcus Rashford. He wants the ball all the time. He's a tough guy. He's a tough little lad. He's only small, but he's not frail. He's only small and slim, but he can get stuck in. And I think he can cause anyone problems. I think he can. And if I was an Evertonian, I'd be worried about Amad Diallo because I think he's a player who's looked up for it this season, certainly looks up for it in the brief spell he's had under Ruben Amorim. And I think he could cause you some problems. So, yeah, I'm glad you pointed it out because not a lot of rival fans will do. And I think you're right to because I think he's one of United's best players in terms of the problems he can cause.
And Everton, I mean, it's hard to describe our lineup at the moment in terms of danger men because most of our best players are in the defensive side of the pitch. I mean, Calvert-Lewin hasn't been scoring. Beto don't really know where he fits into the whole system. Lindstrom is falling a bit, is blowing a bit hot and cold at the moment, but the only one who we've had a bit of consistency out of is Iliman and Dyche. So is there anyone in the Everton team who you look at and think that they're maybe a danger towards United this weekend?
I mean, you can explain this to me because I've not watched a lot of Everton, but I've always been quite dismissive of Dwight McNeil. I didn't think he was that good, but I've noticed he's been amongst the goals and assists this season. I think he's a player that's been doing quite well. So if he's on a bit of form, then he's might maybe want to keep an eye on him. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Calvert-Lewin is a player. I've said this before, and I think there's an element of this for United where on their day they can cause problems. On their day they can be a scorer or can get you a goal. And Calvert-Lewin, he's done it to United before. I know it was going back a little while, but I remember the 3-3 at Old Trafford, the last minute equaliser goal, which ended at any sort of faint title hopes we had. So he's someone I've always still got that in the back of my mind, just keep an eye on. But I think Everton have got those players that, if they turn up, can cause you issues. I think you've just got the same problem we've got at Old Trafford. You've got far too many players who don't turn up consistently enough. Just don't. And I think also it's the same with your goalkeeper, Jordan Pickford. I think if he's on form, he's one of the best keepers in the league, and I think he can frustrate you. But again, it's whether he's on form or not, because I think he did it at Old Trafford a couple of seasons ago where, for a long spell, we just couldn't get past him. We had chance after chance after chance after chance, and he was saving everything until eventually we got the goal. So, yeah, I think Everton have got a few players that, on their day, the issue you've got, and it's the same one we've got, is just on their day, not happen often enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to predict Everton's form at Old Trafford because, whilst we don't often get a result there's always a bit of a weird goal scorer for us. We've had Andros Townsend has come in and scored one of his only goals for Everton. Connor Cody a couple of years ago in the FA Cup. And then the one in the lineup quiz today was Phil Jagielka, bundled the ball over the line and we got a 1-1 out of it. But just before we go into that lineup quiz, score predictions for this weekend, Jay?
Positivity and almost a what they're about from the players. So I'm going to go with 3-1 to United.
3-1 to United. I said
I think you could get goals
Arsenal.
against this. Oh yeah, well, you wouldn't surprise me, but I think you could get goals. You can get a goal against United, especially from set pieces. We still look a bit all over the place, but I think United we could have too much.
I never like to predict a loss for Everton, but I think this is the one, and I said it yesterday, that this is the one that United will look at as the one that they can come out and get the first win under Amorim. And obviously it's being at home in the Premier League against in a big fixture, two very big teams. So I think for us, the key will be stopping United scoring. And if we can do that, then it sounds obvious that we are going to get something out of it. But if we can stop you scoring, then that's going to be the most important thing rather than trying to outscore United.
Yeah, I mean, better than anyone that if things aren't going well for United, the crowd can start getting on the players' backs. It's just the way it is. It's a thing that we won't. We'll just consistently get behind the team and the players, especially with the new manager there. But it just can happen. It's human nature. I think it's the same at most grounds. If it's just not going, then it can get a little bit tetchy, and everything can frustrate. Sean Dyche can frustrate. That's one of the the things he's got in his locker is he knows how to set a team up that can frustrate the opposition. If he does that, if he sets up in a way that is just sort of sucking the life out of the game, then that might work in Everton's favour. And like you said, a point with no disrespect. I mean, a point to anyone at Old Trafford should still be a decent result, and especially if he's struggling and it's something you can build on. So it's not the craziest suggestion I've heard, and I think if we don't, if we haven't scored by our time, you might hear the crowd getting a little bit touchy, and it may well go in Everton's favour. But yeah, I just feel there will be goals. I think there's goals in this team at the minute, and I think that we will be able to break down that door.
Yeah, and then going into our lineup quiz this weekend, of course, there've been a few fairly recent ones from this sort of time recently. But before we get into that, leave in the comment section down below your players who've played for United and Everton, and I'll read a couple of them out at the end of the show. So, as I mentioned there, Jay, it was the game where Phil Jagielka scored the goal for Everton, 4th of April, 2017. I think this was a Jose season. Was it the year that you won the Europa League? There's one big player, who had one big season at United who played in this game. But how many of this 11 can you get? It's a fairly recognisable 11, I'd say. There's a couple of actually former Everton players and current Everton players in this one.
The only issue I've got with it is Jose was very strange in the league as well. When we won the Europa, he did this thing where he just started changing everything around, and it was all the focus was on the Europa after about Christmas. So I'm not sure whenabouts this is, whether he was still playing his strongest team or he's still mixing it up. I vaguely remember this game, but my memory is pretty shocking. So I think I know most of this team. I think I can get most of them.
Okay, right.
So in goal, yeah.
In goal, De Gea, yeah.
I'm going to go from left to right. This is going to be a struggle. I'll go Ashley Young. Maybe Phil Jones.
It wasn't Phil Jones. There was actually, I'm not sure if any of these other defenders are still playing. If they are playing, then they're playing in some random leagues. But
Rowe or something like that.
Yeah, they were the two. I think centre backs. Maybe one of them. Maybe Rojo was a left back. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Rojo and Bailly. I'm trying to think who else would have been playing at that time. I think I'm trying to think 2017. Did we start with Chris Smalling involved at all?
No, it's a funny one. It's a player who sort of he had a little bit of a resurgence after he left United, and I think he came in as a Louis van Gaal player.
A defender who came in as a Louis van Gaal player. Who had a little bit of a resurgence. Oh, was it Matteo Darmian?
No. He was sort of a bit of he could play anywhere. He could play in midfield, left back, centre back when he wants to. Very small, quite a small guy. Say again.
Sorry, very small.
He was in terms of his height, you wouldn't have expected him to be a defender.
He came in under Louis van Gaal, and he was very small. I'm just trying to think who we brought in as a defender. What nationality?
Sorry?
Sorry. What nationality was he?
He's Dutch. Yeah. Daley Blind. Yeah,
I quite like Daley Blind. I should have known that. Was Ander Herrera in the midfield? Did he play?
Yeah. There's a midfield 3 or 4 here. I'm not sure.
Nemanja Matic, was he still involved at the time?
No, I'll give you a clue. One of them's a current manager. One of them's a former Everton player.
So it's Fellaini.
Yeah, Fellaini was starting in centre mid. Yeah, I think this probably would have been Carrick's last season. Jay, you could probably confirm that for me.
He was in the team that won the Europa or the squad because him and Rooney. That meant they'd won everything basically at club level, that Europa League win. So if it's Carrick, Fellaini, and Herrera as a sort of 3, I'm guessing then Rooney, Zlatan, and Maybe or Marcus.
One of them was wrong. So Marcus Rashford did start. Zlatan Ibrahimovic did start. Wayne Rooney wasn't in the squad for this one. I'm not sure why. Maybe he had an injury or something. The player who replaced him is still playing, and he's playing. I think it might be in China, but it's a tough one. He did have a couple of good spells with some Premier League clubs after United, but he was still very young at this point. Sorry, Jay, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I think Danny Welbeck had gone by then, so I don't think it's him. Can't be. Spells with Premier League clubs after he left United, which is quite rare. I'm trying to think who. And he said it's not Lingard.
Sorry, I couldn't. It is Lingard. I couldn't hear you. Your audio was cutting out.
I said it was either Marcus or Lingard.
Sorry. Yeah, that's
sorry. That's
fault,
my bad. My audio is terrible. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah.
And
so was it Zlatan, Marcus, and Lingard? Did you say was that the front three?
Yeah. Weird one of them. I'm not sure why Rooney wasn't starting. He wasn't on the bench either. He must have been injured. But I'll read out your bench as well. Paul Pogba came on for Daley Blind. Henrik Mkhitaryan came on for Michael Carrick. And Luke Shaw came on for Ashley Young. And all the Evertonians watching will know why Ashley Young got booked. Of course he does. It's one that you can safely put a bet on every week. Ashley Young always gets booked. We have a thing at Everton on Everton Twitter every week, Jay, where we have a sweepstake of what minute Ashley Young is going to get booked in. And it seems to happen every week. But right before we go, obviously, because I know we've got some audio issues, just give me your sort of Mount Rushmore of Manchester United. It's a tough one, and there's a couple of names that are pretty obvious.
Yeah, four players on Mount Rushmore.
You can have managers as well, just four names if you were to build a statue of a Mount Rushmore.
You've got to have Busby on there. You've got to have Sir Alex Ferguson on there.
Who was that?
So it'd be Busby, Fergie. Let me try and change something here to see if my this might help the audio a little bit.
Yeah, that's a bit better. I think.
Any better there?
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry about that. I'll go Busby, Fergie, Bobby Charlton, and even though I love Wayne Rooney and I love Roy Keane, the other one I'm going to put on there is going to be Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona. If there's going to be a Mount Rushmore with anything to do with Manchester United, Eric Cantona has to be on it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, there you have it. That's probably the best one that we're going to get in the league this season, I think, in terms of Mount Rushmores. But tell us where we can find you, Jay, because as well as Stretford Paddock, you're doing a bit in your own personal TikTok as well at the minute, aren't you?
Yeah, I do some sort of politics stuff on my TikTok, Jay Motty. Obviously, Stretford Paddock, we do all the United stuff there. I've got a podcast with my mate Scotty and Motty where we do stuff like more sort of human interest stuff. We do like stories about the homeless and mental health and stuff like that. So if you follow me on socials on Jay Motty, you'll see everything that I'm up to. I'm keeping myself busy.
Amazing. Well, make sure you go check Jay out on all of his social media channels. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Toffee Blues. Get your score predictions in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one.